Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Robert.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome.
In our top story, the Israeli Knesset has officially opened its summer session. The first order of business will be for the government to pass the overdue state budget for 2023. The Knesset will have 4 weeks to approve the 2 trillion shekel fiscal plan. If the budget is not approved by the deadline of May 29th, the government will be automatically dissolved and snap elections will be triggered. Also on the docket is the issue of judicial reform, which has sparked heated debates and protests throughout the country. One of the conditions for the formation of the current coalition is a restructuring of the High Court to make it more bipartisan and representative of the Israeli public. Until now, judges have been self-appointing, which has resulted in a liberal Supreme Court.
Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy was in Israel, where he addressed the Knesset at the opening of its summer session. He's only the second Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives to be accorded the honor of appearing before the Knesset plenum. The GOP lawmaker used the opportunity to pledge that the United States would fully fund security aid to Israel while he is Speaker. McCarthy arrived with a bipartisan delegation of 20 House Republicans and Democrats. The group prayed at the Western Wall, where the California lawmaker said Israel is a blessed nation and that our shared values unite a bond that will never break.
The governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, was in Jerusalem to celebrate Israel's 75th Independence Day. The GOP presidential hopeful expressed his concern over the Biden administration's handling of the Iranian nuclear program and the imminent threat it poses to the Jewish state. He said that under former President Trump's leadership, Iran was in dire straits because there was an effort to hold them accountable. He also expressed regret that the current administration has isolated Saudi Arabia. This policy led the Gulf state to make an agreement with Iran rather than joining the Abraham Accords with Israel. He said, "Our task as Americans is standing strongly and forthrightly with the Jewish state."
The Israeli Navy declared that its newly upgraded Sa'ar 6-class Corvette warships are operational. After 2 years of upgrades, 3 of the 4 ships are now fully equipped with sensors, weapons, and communication systems, and have already been deemed ready to protect Israel's shipping lanes and offshore natural gas fields. 18 of the 20 systems installed are Israeli-made, including a version of the Iron Dome missile defense system and the El-Rod system, which is capable of shooting down cruise and ballistic missiles from the sea.
General Michael Eric Kurilla, the head of the United States Central Command, was hosted in Israel by IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi. Kurilla visited the elite Shayetet 13 Commando unit and was briefed by its commander on the group's recent operations, joint activity with the U.S. Navy, and current intelligence assessments. The IDF released footage of a joint U.S.-Israeli operation in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. This strategic conduit connects the Gulf of Aden to the Red Sea. The IDF noted that the military leaders agreed to continue expansion of the cooperation and sharing of operational capabilities between their militaries.
Gaza-based terrorists fired dozens of rockets into southern Israel. This latest escalation comes after a Palestinian terrorist died in Israeli custody as a result of an 86-day hunger strike. Hadar Adnan's involvement in terror groups and incitement to violence against Jews made him an Arab hero, and major terrorist organizations rallied to support his nefarious cause. Adnan admitted to working with Iranian-backed terror groups in Israel and was the spokesman for Islamic Jihad.
The Palestinian Authority is demanding an apology from the President of the European Commission for comments she made congratulating the Jewish state on its 75th year of independence. Ursula von der Leyen delivered a special message on Twitter for Israeli Independence Day, praising the Jewish state's friendship with Europe. She said, "Today we celebrate 75 years of vibrant democracy in the heart of the Middle East, 75 years of dynamism, ingenuity, and groundbreaking innovations which have literally made the deserts bloom." The Palestinian Authority demanded an apology for what it claimed were racist remarks. They accused van der Leyen of dehumanizing the Palestinian people by perpetuating the denial of the catastrophe of the creation of the State of Israel.
The United Arab Emirates will host a Jewish Studies conference facilitated by New York's Yeshiva University. This is the first program of its kind in the Gulf state. It will be held in cooperation with Mohammed bin Zayed Universities for Humanities in the Crossroads of Civilization Museum, which houses the only Holocaust exhibit in the Arab world. The conference will focus on philosophical interactions and mutual influences between Islam and Judaism. Yeshiva University released a statement saying the program aims to strengthen academic partnerships between the institutions and foster dialogue between Jews and Muslims in the region.
More than 6,000 Jewish students were hosted at a mega event in Miami to celebrate Israel's 75th birthday. Marlin Stadium was packed with 1st through 12th graders from dozens of schools throughout Florida to celebrate this important milestone in Israeli history. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a message to the audience, which was broadcast on the stadium's Jumbotron screen. And Israel's Consulate General in Miami praised the hard work of the coordinators who planned this event for more than a year. Tila Falik-Levy, one of the organizers of the event, said that it was important to create a feeling of love, passion, solidarity, and unity for the Jewish youth of her community.
Jewish children in the United Kingdom prepared a special rendition of a traditional Jewish song for the coronation of King Charles III. The United Synagogue, which is a union of British Orthodox congregations, announced that a Jewish children's choir, accompanied by musicians from Ukraine, recorded a new version of the famous Jewish prayer Adon Olam for His Majesty. Anthony Broza, the chief executive of the music distribution company which worked on the project, said, "We hope that this new recording of Adon Olam will act as further recognition of the community's affection for the royal family and our gratitude that Jews can observe their customs and traditions safely and openly in the UK."
The Knesset Christian Allies Caucus held a celebratory event to launch its activities for the 25th Israeli Knesset in the presence of Christian leaders from around the world. This parliamentary group has been one of the most active and influential Knesset caucuses since its inception in 2004. The KCAC works to forge direct lines of communication between Knesset members, Christian leaders, and political representatives around the globe. It works in partnership with the 52 Israel Allies caucuses in governments worldwide through the coordinating efforts of the Israel Allies Foundation. Josh Reinstein, the director of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus and president of the Israel Allies Foundation, hailed faith-based diplomacy as one of the most important tools that Israel has in its diplomatic arsenal.
Reverend Rebecca Brimmer, the international president and CEO of Bridges for Peace, has been given the Yakir Award. That's Karen Hayesod's highest honor. Every year, the official fundraising arm of the Jewish state recognizes individuals for their outstanding commitment and contributions to Israel and its people. Bridges for Peace runs programs in Israel and throughout the world, giving Christians the opportunity to actively express their biblical responsibility to be faithful to Israel and the Jewish community. BFP was the sole Christian organization honored by Karen Hayesod this year. Rebecca Bremer has served as the president and CEO of Bridges for Peace for 18 years. She has dedicated her life to building relationships between Christians and Jews, not only in Israel, but globally as well. Bremer is the fourth Christian to ever receive this prestigious award.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Rabbi Leo D. He was a victim of a terrible, horrible terrorist attack last month in the Jordan Valley, where his wife and 2 daughters were murdered. Rabbi D, thank you for being on the show.
Shalom.
Rabbi D, the whole nation of Israel and all around the world, Jews and Christians alike, have rallied and prayed for you and your family. It was a terrible incident that happened. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So it was the second day of Passover, and we were driving up for a family holiday in the north of Israel. And we were in 2 cars. Lucy was with Maya and Rena, and I was with Tali and Yehuda. Karen, Lucy had dropped off at her orphanage where she was going to work over the weekend and then come and join us. And as Lucy was driving with the girls, she took a slightly different route to us. We split at a junction, and a terrorist car with an accomplice was waiting there. They swerved into the car and they got out and they shot 20 bullets from a Kalashnikov into them at short range.
You know, this is something that is such a vicious, horrible incident. Yet when you spoke about it, you had a message of peace. How were you able to get the strength to even speak about peace after that?
Josh, let me tell you something. It happened during Passover, which is the Jewish festival where we remember how God took us out of slavery in Egypt. And 2 million Jews, actually 600,000 adults between the age of 20, males between the age of 20 and 60. So we estimate about 2 million Jews were liberated by God, led by Moses across the Red Sea, the Reed Sea, and came to freedom on the other side during the festival of Passover. And we see from this something very interesting, which is that God felt that one of the most important topics for the Torah was about freedom. And Passover is probably one of the most important festivals of the year where we remember God taking us to freedom. And I think we can learn from this a very important lesson, because as Jews, as you know, we believe we're made in the image of God, as Christians do as well, and that we need to imitate God. I think the Christians have a term for that, imitatio Deo. And therefore, if God thought it was necessary to take slaves out of slavery, then it seems to me that we do too. And the way I look at this is as follows, that you have in the Middle East today 100 million, 200 million people who live in slavery in regimes across the Middle East, Arab regimes, where there's no human rights. Funded terror by the terrorist state of Iran, which trickles down through Syria to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to the Palestinian Authority to pay terrorists like the ones that killed my wife and daughters. Also create a situation of slavery in the Arab world. So what we see is that actually good Arabs, mostly good Arabs, hundreds of millions of good Arabs are living in fear and trepidation of their own regimes, which are funded by Iran and funded by terror money, supported a little bit sometimes by terror journalism, by some of American and British and European channels who encourage the terrorism because it sells papers, it sells newspapers. And what happens is that these terror attacks actually, they scare us and they kill us, but they actually scare more the hundreds of millions of Muslims in these regimes. And so my heart goes out to them. And I actually, during this process, actually began to realize that my Arab neighbors and my Palestinian friends who wanted to come to visit us at the Shiva and pay our respects, even my Arab Israeli friends who have Israeli passports and live in freedom and with complete human rights, because Israel has a score of 77 out of 100 in Human Rights and Freedom House. It's the only democracy, or the greatest democracy in the Middle East, as you know. They were scared to come. They wanted to come, but they were scared to come. And now every Arab I'm speaking to, I'm saying to them, I'm bumping into them in the shops, I'm saying to them in my local supermarket, we share with the Palestinian Arabs. And I'm saying to them, I know you want to show respect to me, and I know how you feel. I know you want to live in freedom and in prosperity. I know that you want to live in peace with me and with my neighbors. But I also know that you're too scared, because if you try and do that, you'll get murdered by your regime. And you know what they say to me? They say, you're right. They whisper to me, you're right. And they can't say it. I say it to them and they say, you're right. They live in fear. So whatever happened to me, which was a terrible tragedy, is happening all the time in these regimes. So my heart goes out to them.
You know, one of the things that really shook the nation is how much it's affected every Israeli. People were very upset. I know in my family we were devastated to hear the news. Even the Prime Minister of Israel came to visit you during this time. What was his message?
So Bibi came along and he talked a lot about his brother, Yonatan Netanyahu, who died during the Entebbe raid, was a great hero for the Israeli people, for the whole world, right? He saved all the hostages in Entebbe. And he talked about his mourning process, which he's still going through today, that he's still, he said, you'll never forget. It will always be part of you. And I think, that's what we're feeling now. It's part of us now. It's part of our identity.
One of the things that you're trying to do is to make something positive come from this, and you're working to try to do something good in the world. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
So my initial thought, and I think really my direction has to be shalom. So shalom is an interesting word, because most of us think shalom means peace. But what I said to people is that actually peace has slightly different connotations. So some of our neighbors in the region want peace. They want a piece of Israel. They want a piece of America. They want a piece of Europe. When we talk about shalom, we're not talking about peace. Peace has a sort of feeling of like unification. Everybody's exactly the same. Shalom, Josh, I think is more like a jigsaw puzzle. So shalom is where you have lots of different shaped pieces that fit together in a beautiful frame and create a lovely picture together. But every piece is different. And the thing about peace is it's about reconciling conflicts and creating a framework of respect, maybe love, where people with different views can live together, Christians and Muslims and Jews and Chinese and Indians and people from all the world. If they're good people, each different piece actually creates an extra dimension to the whole.
Well, Rabbi, we have literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
I believe, Josh, that actually if all the good people in the world were to march through the streets of New York and Paris and Lausanne and London and Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, holding flags of Israel, America, European countries which represent democracy, with slogans saying, free the Iranian people, free the Palestinian people, free the Gazans, free the Syrians, I think we could have a really positive message that goes out to the world and actually builds confidence with those enslaved people who are living in fear regimes and terror regimes funded by Iran. And actually that might give them the confidence to actually do something more and maybe to look for help from the outside world. And together we could all solve this international conflict. But it requires every single one of us to get out there with our flags, American, Israeli, European, British flags that represent democracy, going out there and marching for the freedom of our Muslim Arab brothers who live in these regimes in states of fear. They need to see it from us, and we can show them that we love them.
Thank you, Rabbi D, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Hello, and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Sam Grunberg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Today, Ukrainian Jews are in great danger as they live in war-torn Ukraine. Help us fulfill the biblical prophecy by bringing our brothers and sisters back home to safety. God bless you from Jerusalem.
I will even gather you from the peoples, and assemble you out of the countries where ye have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. Ezekiel 11:17.
In eastern Ukraine, over the past 2.5 years, a brutal and cruel war has been raging. A savage war without clearly defined front lines. Against this backdrop, the Jews of eastern Ukraine have been in peril. The donors of Karen Hayesod from around the world have heeded the call and have come to their rescue. Our supporters realize that the window of opportunity to rescue these Jews may slam shut.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. Isaiah 49:18.
We are here to support, all of us, the Jewish people who return to their homeland, to support each other.
These Jews must be extracted from burning towns, from raging battles, and from the chaos of eastern Ukraine, and brought back to their ancient homeland.
Я решила приехать в Израиль, потому что я последние полгода почувствовала свои еврейские корни и поняла, что я не могу больше находиться в своей стране, и я должна вернуться на свою историческую родину.
Корни говорят сами о себе, было рвение, плюс хотелось, чтобы сын узнал. Вот.
Воссоединение с семьей, наша семья здесь сейчас, папа, мама, сестра.
Большое волнение, но как-то у меня сразу, как мы прилетели, какое-то ощущение было правильности нашего выбора.
Для будущего нашего ребенка в первую очередь.
Karenai Assad's friends around the world have been stepping forward to enable this life-saving effort to continue. Many thousands have already been rescued, yet many thousands still remain in eastern Ukraine. They must be brought out now. Through Karenai Assad and our partner, the Jewish Agency, our dreams, our prayers, and our hopes are coming together in fulfillment of the biblical prophecy that foresaw the return of the Jewish people to their ancestral homeland.
Behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the uttermost parts of the earth. A great company shall they return hither. Jeremiah 31:7.
The situation is highly unpredictable, and we must not miss this chance to help. We cannot let them down. All possible resources must be mobilized in this effort. You too can play your part in this crucial mission as Karenai Assad provides these Jews in distress with new lives in Israel. Join us. We must not forsake them in their time of need.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, visit khisrael.org.
And now, Shining Light from Israel.
At the edge of the Judean desert, Herod's built here a lavish palace. Welcome to the Herodian. Herod, or the way he was known, Herod's the Great, Herod's the Builder, built many other places here in the land of Israel. He built Caesarea, named it after Augustus. He built the temple, the most beautiful building and the most beautiful temple. Unlike other people who just took a place and named it after him, or took a mountain and built a palace on top of it and named it after them, Herod's built himself an entire mountain that you can see here. Herod, when he built the Herodian, he built it not just as a palace, but also to a monument to the place where he defeated finally the Maccabees and become a king of Judea. The place was so significant to Herod that he wasn't just building a palace. At the end of his life, he decided that this place going to be a monument for his burial site. Yosef ben Matityahu, Josephus Flavius, described the entrance to the Herodian with 200 steps made of white marble. Welcome to the palace. Only few people could come up here to the inner palace. One of them was the secretary to the Caesar of Rome himself, Marcus Agrippa. When he came here, he came to a beautiful peristyle courtyard with garden and bird. We have to remember, the Herodian wasn't just a fortress or a place to live, it was also a monument that will show to the entire universe, especially the people of Jerusalem, that here in Herodian, this is the place where I become a king. That's the reason why I named it here after me. You cannot see Herodian from Jerusalem. It's in the valley. So Herod's built a mountain. On top of it, they built a palace. But it wasn't enough. Herod's built 3 towers to protect the palace. But he also built a tower that was 120 feet high. That from every place you go, every place you've seen, you'll see Herodian. Welcome to the bathhouse, to the royal bathhouse. This place, it's like a time capsule that was intact. The dome that we see in front of us is one of the earliest domes in Israel. Behind me, located the triclinium, the dining hall. 3 benches that the high society of the people, among them Marcus Agrippa, the secondary to the Caesar, ate their food, and they had the best food you can get in the entire Roman Empire. The only thing, it was kosher. Herod was a Jew. The Jews revolted against the Roman Empire. At the beginning, they took 3 fortresses, Metzada, Mechvar, and here in the Herodian. They didn't care about luxuries. They didn't care about a good food, and they definitely did not care about beautiful triclinium and dining hall. And they took the most beautiful room in the palace and made it into a synagogue, a word that comes from the word synagoga, sitting together. 3 benches where they all sat together and studied the Torah. This is probably one of the earliest synagogues that we found in the archaeology. When you're standing here on the top of the palace, you can understand why Herod chose to build his palace in such a place and location. The view that you can see from the top is magnificent. Thank you for joining us to the lost journey of the lost king of Judea. Next time you're in Israel, come to the Herodian. Don't miss it.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El-Rom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.